Welcome back to Crime Scene 24/7. To our returning subscribers, thank you for always engaging. Your likes, comments, and shares keeps us motivated. And if this is your first time here, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our chilling crime scenes. Here we dig deep, we investigate hard, and we bring you stories the mainstream left unsaid. So encourage us by engaging in our videos. Subscribe if you haven't, like, comment, and share. It began with a baby's cry and ended with a courtroom confession that stunned a nation. On August 14, 2025, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro vanished from a parking lot in Cabazon, California. His mother claimed he'd been kidnapped while she changed his diaper outside a store, but investigators found a different truth. No abduction, no attacker, just questions and a trail of suspicion. 8 weeks later, Emmanuel's father, 32-year-old Jake Haro, stood in court and pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, child assault, and filing a false police report. His son's body still hasn't been found, and what investigators discovered about the man behind the trigger stunned even veteran detectives. Within days of the disappearance, law enforcement uncovered a prior record. Just 2 years earlier, Haro had pleaded guilty to brutally abusing an infant daughter, leaving her permanently disabled. The question now hanging over Riverside County: how close did authorities come to preventing this? And why did the warning signs go unanswered? In a few minutes, we'll follow the timeline of Emmanuel's disappearance, the chilling investigations, and the guilty plea that cracked the case wide open. But the deeper truth, hidden in false accounts and vanished remains, may still be waiting to be exposed. August 14th, 2025. A warm summer evening in the small community of Yucaipa, California. A 7-month-old baby named Emmanuel Haro was reported missing by his mother, Rebecca Haro, after she claimed to have been assaulted outside a Big 5 sporting goods store. She told authorities someone struck her and snatched her son from his car seat. Hours before the story broke, picnics, errands, diaper changes, ordinary. But at around 7:47 p.m., the narrative shifted. Law enforcement alerts were issued, K-9 units deployed, and the parking lot scene flooded with police lights. 1 week later, on August 22nd, both parents, Rebecca and 32-year-old Jake Haro, were arrested at their Cabazon home and charged with murder and filing a false police report. Investigators declared the kidnapping claim false and that Emmanuel was likely dead. The public watched the vigil lights flicker. The nation asked, what really happened to Emmanuel? Was this a kidnapping or something far more tragic? Now the question looms. Could this have been prevented? With child abuse records, warning signs ignored, and a system under scrutiny, the community demands an answer. Every heartbreaking case leaves behind lives, raw and fragile, that carry the weight of the tragedy. In the story of baby Emmanuel Haro, those who should have been his protectors are now the central figures in a nation's grief. Emmanuel was just 7 months old, wrapped in a black Nike onesie when his disappearance was first reported on August 14, 2025. His mother, Rebecca Haro, claimed she was changing his diaper in the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store in Yucaipa, California, when someone said "hola," and he vanished. But the scene behind that story tells a different tale. Investigators later disclosed that Emmanuel likely died days earlier, perhaps as early as August 5th, and the kidnapping claim was a false report. His father, Jake Haro, now 32, and mother, 41-year-old Rebecca, were both charged with his murder and making a false police report after evidence showed ongoing abuse. The broader community watched in shock as the story shifted from missing child to murder investigation. A vigil lit up in Yucaipa. Dozens of candles flickered in the warm night air, held by parents who held their own babies just a little tighter. One local said simply, "I have a baby at home. I'm going to go home and hug him extra tight tonight." Emmanuel's family now faces the unimaginable, not just the loss of a child, but the truth that the person they trusted most may have caused it. The couple's other child, a 2-year-old sibling, has since been removed from their custody. Parents and grandparents in the courtroom watched as prosecutor Mike Hestron told the press, "The evidence shows that baby Emmanuel endured ongoing abuse that ultimately took his life. For the Haro family, the
victim list is painfully small, yet the ripple effects stretch far beyond them, to the community of Yucaipa, to law enforcement questioning their systems, to every child left vulnerable. And while Emmanuel's life was brief, his story forced a spotlight onto something far larger, how a tiny life could be lost, and how the signs might have been missed. Because while the world mourned a baby's life cut too short, detectives uncovered something that would turn the case inside out. August 14, 2025, a seemingly calm Thursday evening in Yucaipa, California. The sun had just begun its descent when 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro was reported missing. His mother, Rebecca Haro, said she stopped in the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store, placed her baby into his car seat, and bent down to change his diaper. She says she was struck from behind. She blacked out. When she awoke, Emmanuel was gone. Around 7:47 p.m., San Bernardino County deputies arrived on the scene, setting off one of the largest searches the Inland Empire had seen in recent memory. Tracking dogs, helicopter search teams, and crime scene investigators fanned out across the desert hills and highway shoulders. The initial story held tension. A mother attacked, a baby abducted. But as hours passed, investigators cracked open the scene and found alarm bells. On August 20th, they seized the vehicle of Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro, adding layers of doubt to the kidnapping narrative. Meanwhile, cadaver dogs searched alongside Freeway 60 near Moreno Valley, trucks parked on the shoulder, floodlights scanning the brush. A possible sighting in Kern County turned cold. The child remained missing.
By August 22nd, law enforcement took a dramatic turn. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department announced the kidnapping never happened. The case was now being handled as a murder investigation. Emmanuel was presumed dead. Both parents were arrested at their home in Cabazon. The scene of the crime was not just the strip mall parking lot anymore. It was inside a home where abuse may have taken root. Court documents indicate Emmanuel likely died as early as August 5th, days before his disappearance was reported. Chaos had turned into calculated investigation. The public narrative of kidnapping unspooled into something far more tragic. Police lights still flashed across rural South Inland highways. Reporters asked, "Where's the baby? Why did it take this long? Who overlooked the signs?" The words were disturbing, but it was the digital fingerprints that investigators couldn't ignore. The night after Emmanuel's disappearance, the parking lot lights still glowed in Yucaipa as K9 units combed brush and bloodhounds traced scent on the pavement. Deputies locked down the scene. Search warrants were executed at the family home in Cabazon. Cameras rolled as cadaver dogs swept the property. Investigators interviewed the baby's mother and father separately. Rebecca Haro described being struck from behind while changing Emmanuel's diaper. When she awoke, she said, her son was gone. But the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department published this statement. During the interviews, Rebecca Haro was confronted with inconsistencies and declined to continue cooperating. Meanwhile, detectives pulled hours of surveillance video. They followed the father's vehicle, seized it for evidence, and traced Emmanuel's last known movements to the Big 5 sporting goods parking lot. They pursued possible sightings into Kern County. But still, no child. Then came a chilling turn. On August 27, 2025, District Attorney Michael Hestron revealed the case was no longer a missing persons investigation. It was a homicide. The evidence shows baby Emmanuel endured ongoing abuse that ultimately took his life, he said. Investigators uncovered records showing that Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro, had been convicted of child cruelty in 2018. His infant daughter left permanently disabled. The judge's decision to keep him on probation rather than send him to prison would now face harsh scrutiny. Every piece collected, car logs, surveillance records, search warrants, home inspections, pointed to one conclusion. What was reported as a kidnapping was fabricated. The child was presumed dead. And while his remains had not yet been found, detectives had a pretty strong indication of where they might be. The public watched. The parents no longer appeared as pleading victims, but as suspects. Headlines shifted. Families who held vigils now held hearings. For a community that once believed a stranger had snatched a baby from a parking lot, the truth turned inward. The DNA of this investigation wasn't found on a note. It was buried deep inside the logs, the phone records, the hidden camera drives. Yet even as the investigation deepened, one question kept echoing. How could a child's death be hidden in plain sight? And had someone, somewhere, missed the warning signs? By late afternoon, news crews were parked outside the Haro family home in Cabazon. The man whose name now dominated the headlines was 32-year-old Jake Haro. On the surface, he seemed ordinary. A father, a husband, a young family man living in Riverside County, California. But investigators say the story beneath the surface was far darker. Court records reveal that in 2018, Haro pleaded guilty to willful child cruelty after his infant daughter, then just 10 weeks old, was admitted to the hospital with multiple fractures, brain hemorrhages, and retinal damage. That child is now permanently disabled. In 2023, records show Haro again faced legal trouble when he was convicted of child cruelty concerning the same incident. Despite the severity of the injuries, he avoided state prison, a fact district attorneys now point to as a tragic missed opportunity. According to San Bernardino County detectives, Haro and his wife, 41-year-old Rebecca Haro, reported their 7-month-old son Emmanuel missing on August 14, 2025. Rebecca said she had been attacked while changing Emmanuel's diaper in a parking lot in Yucaipa, and when she came to, he was gone. Investigators soon confronted Haro with a different reality. On August 16th, officials confirmed inconsistencies in the mother's statement and said they were investigating foul play. Haro's own vehicle was seized on August 20th. Inside the Haro home, search teams found the couple's phones, laptops, and a history of prior investigations. Records show that during the same week Emmanuel disappeared, authorities were also responding to a separate child abuse incident tied to the family in Moreno Valley. Prosecutors say the father's path from documented abuser to defendant in his own baby's death doesn't feel like a coincidence. In a press conference, the Riverside County District Attorney stated, "This baby was failed by his parents and by our system." Haro's defense has maintained he is innocent, that he cooperated with investigators. In a jailhouse interview, he said, "God is with us. The allegations are horrendous, so of course people are going to be riled up." But the question that stands in the mind of every investigator hearing this case is stark. Can a man with a known history of child abuse walk away unmonitored, and then claim ignorance when tragedy strikes? And when detectives peered into the digital world surrounding Emmanuel's life, they discovered threads that reached beyond a single father. But was this young man acting alone? Or did someone guide him into silence? With 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro presumed dead, the public trial of his parents shifted to hearings, press conferences, and the court of public opinion. On October 16, 2025, his father, Jake Haro, 32, entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder, assault causing bodily harm to a child, and filing a false police report. His mother, Rebecca Haro, 41, remains held, pleading not guilty for now. At a packed press conference, District Attorney Mike Hestron did not mince words. He revealed that Jake Haro had been convicted in 2018 of child cruelty for injuries inflicted on his infant daughter, injuries that left her permanently disabled. A lenient sentence followed, and prosecutors now call that decision an outrageous error in judgment. The community's outrage was raw. Parents rallied outside the courthouse, clutching photos of Emmanuel, demanding justice. One resident said, "We trusted the system to protect our children. It failed Emmanuel." The San Bernardino Sheriff's Department released a statement. "Our focus remains on locating Emmanuel, even as they reclassified the case from kidnapping to homicide." Conspiracy theories swirled online. Some speculated that the kidnap story had been fabricated to cover a darker truth. Others blamed the judicial system for letting a known abuser walk free. Experts weighed in. Body language analysts noted that in early interviews, Rebecca Haro's responses lacked typical trauma indicators. The fallout went beyond one family. Child welfare advocates seized on the case, calling for reforms in how child abuse investigations are handled. Schools and daycare providers in California reviewed protocols. Meanwhile, social media groups tracked the case, calling it a no-body homicide and a test of prosecutorial will. As the Haros awaited sentencing, the focus shifted from whether they would be punished to whether the system itself would be held accountable. The mother of Emmanuel's infant sister said in a tearful interview, "This didn't have to happen. He should have been in prison. Our justice system failed him." And just when the community tried to move on, investigators revealed something new hidden in the parents' digital world. Just when the case appeared to be settling into painful clarity, investigators uncovered evidence that changed everything. In early September, detectives serving warrants at the Haro home in Cabazon found extensive digital and electronic data, laptops, external drives, months of phone logs. They discovered what the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department described as a large amount of surveillance footage and electronic evidence, closely analyzed. Among the files were edited videos of baby Emmanuel appearing nowhere, despite his being reported kidnapped on August 14th. Other files revealed audio recordings and deleted messages indicating that his father, Jake Haro, had been home alone with Emmanuel days before the disappearance, and not in the parking lot as initially claimed. Court records show Jake had pleaded guilty in 2018 to willful cruelty to a child, and his history now weighed heavily in this new digital trail. Perhaps most devastatingly, the narrative of a random abduction evaporated when the suspect's vehicle, seized August 20th, was matched via cell phone pings and security footage to his home address, not the Big Five parking lot. Investigators found holes dug in the yard, hidden trash bins, and traces of a home fire from earlier that week. Online conspiracy threads erupted. Some users fact-checked the entire story and suggested baby Emmanuel might never have been real. Others posted timestamps of chat rooms where the Haros version was mocked days before the arrest. For detectives, the major shock wasn't just the abuse history. It was that the digital evidence pointed to intentional deception, hidden from the community, hidden from investigators, hidden from the world. One chilling message read, "No body, no proof, move on." And now, one question looms. If Jake Haro wasn't acting alone, who else had access to that home? Who else was involved? One digital trace suggested the suspect wasn't the only one. Someone else may still be out there. The disappearance and death of baby Emmanuel Haro shook a community and challenged a system. A child just 7 months old reported abducted, only for the investigation to expose something much darker. What began as a parking lot kidnapping revealed long-ignored warning signs, abusive history, digital footprints, and a false narrative. Schools reviewed procedures. Child welfare agencies faced renewed scrutiny. Parents in Yucaipa and beyond now sleep less safely, wondering whether the next crisis lies hidden behind closed doors. Emmanuel's story is tragic and brief, yet its ripples stretch far and wide. To the laws meant to protect children, to the investigators who question what they missed, to every household where a single moment of vigilance could change a life. The real question now isn't just what happened that night, but how many times have we ignored the warning signs before tragedy found its silent moment? Do you believe Jake Haro acted alone, or was someone else behind the screen influencing every move? Share your theory below. I read every single one. If you want daily deep dives into shocking true crime stories, subscribe to Crime Scene 24/7 because here the truth never sleeps.